Blue Dog by Louis de Bernières. Read by Daniel Lapaine. When the sun sets out beyond the range, or scenes of radiant hue, my thoughts drift through the vanished years to treasured times with you. Tom Quilty, Alone in the Evening Shadows. Mick in the middle of Whoop Whoop. The dirty old Cessna came down on the landing strip and bounced. The pilot whooped and took the aircraft up into the air again. He glanced at the pale little boy beside him and said, "Don't be a worrywart, mate. It's just for fun. You don't get many laughs out here unless you find them yourself." As the plane banked round for another run, Mick looked out in wonder at the land beneath him. It consisted of brown grass, twisted trees, red rocks and red earth, and pretty much not anything else as far as the eye could see, unless you counted the sea, which sparkled in the distance like a tray of diamonds. "Everything's red," said Mick. "I've brought you to Mars, mate. Thought you'd like some space travel." "You can't get to Mars in an aeroplane," Mick told him, more confidently than he really felt. "Geez, you're a sharp one. Might as well be on Mars, though. This is the Pilbara. You got to be balmy as a bandicoot to live out here. Even the roos and dingoes are balmy. Give me Margaret River any day. It's lovely down in Albany. Stiff bickies you got to live up here." "Port Hedland looked nice," said Mick. "Well, it is. Got the best fish and chips in the world. Great place if you like fishing. Caught a shark there once with a roo steak." The plane came down again, and Mick tried not to be frightened. It was scary to see the ground rushing up like that. The plane waggled from side to side as the earth rushed up to meet them, and the thump of landing made his stomach seem to jump up into his throat. He gripped the side of his seat, his knuckles white. After they had slewed to a halt, they sat there for a while until the cloud of red dust that had enveloped them had been given time to disperse. It suddenly seemed very hot in the cockpit. When the pilot opened the door and told him to clamber out, the heat overcame the boy like a blast from hell. Mick did not know how to react. He had never felt a heat so dense, as if it were made of metal. "Not so hot today," the pilot said. "You're lucky. Sometimes it's like a bloody furnace." Mick stood on the shimmering earth, and the pilot tossed his blue suitcase down to him, saying, "Here, mate, catch." It wasn't a big case, but it was crammed with almost everything that Mick owned, and he fell backwards as it hit his chest. "Sorry, mate," said the pilot, as Mick stood up and looked dumbly at the red dust that covered his hands and clothes. "Better get used to it." The pilot came down and stood against the tailplane, calling over his shoulder, "Excuse me, mate, just got to shake hands with the unemployed." Mick was from a polite family in Sydney, and it filled him with wonder that someone would actually wee in public without embarrassment. He was busting himself, but he was going to wait until the aircraft had gone. When he grew older, and told foreigners that he came from Sydney, he'd add, "But Sydney isn't really Australia." This was something he was just beginning to learn as he stood out there in the desert, a city boy of 11 years who felt as if he had lost everything. The pilot finished, buttoned himself up, and said cheerfully, "No one to meet ya. That's a shame. Don't worry, someone will be along in 2 shakes. I'll leave you a bottle of water. Oh, and you can have me sandwiches. Bloody Vegemite and cucumber. She knows I don't like it." "Why don't you just make your own sandwiches then?" asked Mick sensibly. But the pilot just looked at him as if he was mad and replied, "Take my advice, mate. Don't get married. You're better off with a dog, and that's the truth." Mick sat on his suitcase and watched the plane take off in another plume of dust, and then disappear, the sun glinting on its wings despite its shabbiness. It banked as it turned back towards Port Hedland, waggling its wings in friendly farewell. Mick had liked that strange, humorous, rough-hewn pilot, and the thought struck him that maybe when he grew up he could be a bush pilot too, or a flying doctor. The noise of the engine faded out in the distance, and Mick realized that he was completely alone. It was slightly strange not to be feeling the vibration and noise of the plane anymore. The heat was stunning, and there was nothing he could do but sit there and wait, fighting back the panic and horror of being alone in this vast, alien place of spinifex and red-hot rock. He opened his suitcase and took out a shirt to put on his head, because he could feel the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?